Hello, everyone,
Hey.
and welcome to this episode of Breakthrough Innovation. With us today is Sid Dalal, the co-founder of Broker Botix and a fractional CTO to early-stage startups. Sid's work revolves around building the future of adulting through innovative ventures that span the wedding industry, food e-commerce, and financial investment research. In addition to empowering startups to launch products on a budget, Sid has also explored a unique approach to entrepreneurship by co-founding Broker Biotics with his 15-year-old son. Sounds like a challenge. I love it. As a technology strategist and venture builder, Sid is known for helping startups achieve their technology goals, enhancing engineering team productivity, and driving innovation through his expertise in AI and automation. Sid is also an author, educator, and advocate for fostering learning across generations. So join us as we discuss his journey, the rise of fractional CTOs, and what it takes to create impactful startups in today's fast-paced world. Sid, I'm excited to dive in. I really want to hear some more about Broker Botix. Sounds good. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Yeah, so I started Broker Botix with my son last year. He had actually just turned 14 when we started Broker Botix. So I think when he was around 12 years old, I taught him how to trade options. So I had a Robinhood account. There's a few $100s in it. It was enabled for options. I said, hey, you want to make a couple of bucks? You can start doing some basic options trading out there. And so he wasn't happy with just making $1 or $2 at that point. So like, oh, yeah, the $1 or $2, that doesn't sound great. So he started doing trades where he was getting like $4 or $5 or $50. And then eventually he basically lost all the money there. So,
Right.
and then he gave up on it. I'm like, that's fine. I'll put another 50 or another $100 in there. But he's like, yeah, I don't have time. It happens in school. And then he just gave up on it until he turned 14. And he's like, oh, let's do some code project together. And we've done code projects together before, and they've usually been like a whole like war of the worlds kind of situation. And so I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is going to be another one of these. But he came up with this himself, so I'll support what he wants to do. So we started discussing, like, what should we do? He's like, yeah, you've been bothering me for the last 2 years to go trade more options. Maybe I can just do something about that with code. And so he started out on that. And then I think in March or April of 2023, he had something working where it was like automatically placing trades in my account like every week. It's like, hey, this sounds great. So we did an entrepreneurship course together here locally. Said, yeah, let's like, if he's interested in this, let's start a business. We did an entrepreneurship course together. And then after that, he got interested in, oh, let's start the business together. And so I said, yeah, go for it. Like register the business, do all the stuff, and then come back to me, and then I'll help you out. And so he registered the business, did all the stuff. And at that point, I was not particularly thrilled about what I was working on, like with my work. And so at that point, I left my job and I joined Broker Botix full time after he founded the company. And I started working for Broker Botix full time. And he went back to school after summer and I continued working on it. And now this is where we are. So we actually transformed from an options trading automation company to a AI financial research investment company, which once after you do the research, then we will automate trades for you. So we're just
Oh,
about
wow.
to launch our new AI enabled financial research platform.
Well, I mean, first, let me say you sound like you're an amazing father, engaging with your kid in
Thanks.
that way and helping him and supporting him in that way. I think
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that if nothing else comes out of this episode, I hope people can follow that example. Uh,
Yeah.
it
One thing
sounds.
I'd say to that is that we really underestimate what kids can do. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
yeah. So they're a lot more advanced than we think they are. And so just letting them lose with a problem and they'll come back with things that, oh yeah, that sounds, yeah, it's doable. Let's do it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think everyone should think about what they were like when they were that age and what they could
Yeah.
do and
Yeah.
how it felt when someone didn't believe in them. I
Yeah.
think that that's a good perspective to take to kind of round this out a little bit. But it sounds like Broker Botix was really kind of inspired by your son more than anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So working with your son over the last couple of years, is that right?
Yeah. It's almost 2 years. Yeah.
So what has that been like? And how has it kind of shaped your perspective or your approach to innovation and leadership?
So as far as leadership goes, it's always like raising kids. I've always thought of management as like, these are the kids that I have to like mentor slash make them do something great. And so now I have a son who's doing this. He's younger than usually the people we worked with. Like the youngest people I've worked with were college students who were interns with us. But yeah, he's younger than all of those. So how do you make that work with a kid? And a lot of times, like the things that a startup makes a mistake with, or most companies do, is they try to build something that is overly complex.
Right.
If you're starting out with a product from scratch, to build the simplest thing that you can build and don't think about all the complications. And that's one piece of advice I give any startup. Like, don't think of all the complications, just build the one thing like that you want to build. And yes, it will be in production for years, and yes, you will have to deal with it, and yes, you will have to rewrite it later, but build the one thing that's the simplest thing that you can build. Don't think of all the complex architecture pieces. And so that's how I started with my son, is like, okay, let's build the simplest thing we can build, and let's see if it works. And then let's see if it actually works on my account. Then we'll have a friend try that and see if it works with them. And then that way we'll understand what's going on and build more after that. So basically that's how it started. And that's what I feel like where I've been helpful with early stage startups is by gutting the complexity of what they're trying to build. And that's
Yeah.
how I've helped most like pre-MVP / post-MVP startups get their products to market faster, is by just like looking at the architecture and then just going with the X and deleting everything that they wanted to build and just build the stuff that, here, this is what the customer wants, build that. If they ask for other stuff, we'll
Yeah.
build it later.
So I think that's fantastic. And it's obvious that you're teaching your son a lot through this. I'm curious about the flip side of that. What has your son taught you?
So he taught me a couple of like a lot of things. It's like, okay, like I am set, like I'm old, right? So I'm in my mid 40s now. I'm set in the way that I'm doing things. I'm used to doing things a certain way. So when I build products or I think of building something, like for example, Broker Botix is a good example. I'm the first consumer of it. So I built it like an engineer would build it as the first consumer of it. And so when I started doing the technical stuff and I would show it to my son, he'd be like, this stuff looks like garbage. And that's his favorite word. It's like, it's garbage. This is garbage. So the thing I learned from like one of the things is that I need to think of the UX from a kid's point of view. Like, and that's all any product. Like if you think of it like, okay, if my kid were to use this, how would they use it? Because they're the generation that's going to use it the most. And the
Right.
first lesson from that would be like, it needs to look nice on a mobile phone. That's the first thing you learn from there. And
Oh,
then,
yeah.
and the other thing is that they have a very different perspective of where they find things and how they look at things in a product. And then you learn when you build products, is that I need to build it from a sort of more holistic point of view. Like, what am I building? Like, how am I building this? Who's the actual target audience? Like the whole customer discovery comes first before you build the product thing. That's one thing I learned, like building a startup with my son. It's like, okay, this part needs to come first.
No, I love that. And it sounds like, with all your experience in that startup space, it sounds like you're working with a lot of companies that do have those limited resources and maybe even the
Hey,
limited technical expertise. So when you're working with entrepreneurs, they're in that situation, limited resources and limited technical expertise. How do you help them get over the hesitation of starting? How do you help them move forward, even though they don't have some of the things they feel like they need?
so So that's a really good question. And that's something, so most of the startups that I work with, the founders have already gotten over the hump of like, I need to start this business. But I do run into like at local meetups, other entrepreneurs who are thinking of starting things and who want to jump over the hoop. And I met a few of them at ICAP, and I go to our like local, like Charlottesville has a Charlottesville Business Innovation Council. Sort of we monthly hang out for early stage, like, or like local small businesses / startups. And I meet people who are thinking of starting stuff or just in the early journey of starting stuff. And my first advice to them is like, if you're really scared of starting something, start it. Like the easiest thing is go to LegalZoom or whatever, pay the $100, make an LLC. Once you do
Yeah.
that, like the rest of the stuff will just follow step by step. Like that in that first bit is what takes the hesitation out. It's like, okay, now I have a business. Now I need to do something. Like once you get over that, that's the first step.
No, I love that. It's the starting that is scary. And what about the technical expertise? Where do they find, like, how do you connect people? How do they get beyond that, like that lack of knowing how to do the technical side of the product they want to build?
Yeah. And that's exactly how the people who found me is through these local meetups. And so I like, if you are entrepreneurs thinking of starting something and there's an expertise you don't have, like for me, I'm a technical person. I need to find people who are non-technical. For the people who are non-technical, they need to find someone like me who's a technical person. So just go to like local meetups and just meet people, and that's how you
Yeah.
find people. And just so here in Charlottesville, we have several such meetups. Like there's a local conference called B Camp where you have a bunch of technical people hang out. Then there is a monthly meetup where a startup will present their idea, and then someone else will present their an experienced entrepreneur will come and present their experience with starting their company. And then there's this monthly meetups, and I'm sure this is everywhere.
Right.
And there's also the local small business development centers, and they're everywhere too. And so and our SBDC was really helpful to me. So they actually, like, every local small business can go at any point in time, and they'll have an assigned resource who they can talk to about this stuff. So if you're starting a business, doesn't matter what it is. It could be a tech company, it could be a food business, it could be a retail store, whatever it is. There's someone locally at your SBDC who can help you.
Okay. No, I think that's really great advice. I know in Kansas City, and this is a national thing, if not international, there's a group of Million Cups that was put together by the Kauffman Foundation that fits right in with what you're saying. It's a great place to go meet people who are in the same situation, maybe get some support. So I think that's really important is developing that support structure. Because I know as an entrepreneur myself, it can be not only stressful, but sometimes even a little bit lonely if you're used to working in a more corporate environment with a lot of people around you. So making that network really helps combat some of that. Now, to shift gears a little bit, Sid, you've got a lot of experience. I'm curious, when you look ahead, what do you see as the biggest opportunities for innovation in the startup ecosystem, say in the next 5 years?
Yeah, it's already beginning, right? Like if you think of a startup before, like if I think of the startups I worked for in like the mid 2010s, or say 2015-ish. So I worked for startups in 2002 to 2008. Then I worked for startups 2015 onwards. And you can see the difference now. Like the first startup I worked in the early 2000s, it required 8 people for different pieces of expertise. I mean, that was a hard science startup, but it's different. So we needed a bunch of researchers who were doing different stuff. And in 2015, I worked for a tech startup, but a tech startup needed a lot of people. So they needed to raise money, have a bunch of developers, and they built this product, which then they needed a sales team to sell the product and that kind of stuff. And now coming to the mid 2020s, one person can do a lot of things. I mean, there's one of the startups that consulted Novella, it was initially wholly built using no-code tools. Like there was zero code written. So, and no-code tools have become so good. And people talk about AI writing code, but writing code is step 2. Like you can do so much without even writing your first line of code that you can build entire fully functional MVPs for products with zero code. And so it's really true. Like the age of the solopreneur is here. And it's not because of AI. It's because you don't even need to use the AI because you don't need to write the code. And then once you build that, there's so many other tools available. Like if you read LinkedIn, there's always everybody talking about like the whole overload of SaaS products that you have. Like, oh, I need to buy 50 different products that cost me $20 a month, and that's how you run a company. But you don't need most of them. And you just build something and you find the 1 or 2 SaaS products you need, and that's all you need to actually get a startup going. And then after that, it's like, okay, how determined are you to get the customers to come to your startup and use whatever you're building? Or is it something that people want?
Yeah. So that kind of gets us to today. What do you think it's going to be like 5 years from now?
Yeah, so 5 years from now, so now let's say now you've built this startup and now you build it with no-code tools. And now you want to do something which is fancier. Like you want to actually build the real product with all the bells and whistles, and you need to hire a development team. And there's now the last, I'd say 5-6 years, this whole gig economy has sprung up. So you think of a company maybe 15 years ago, they wanted to build something. You find someone locally and then you have to hire a local developer. You'll have to pay them $50, $70, $100 an hour or whatever to get something built. Now you can go and find someone internationally on Upwork and pay 1/5 of that and get reasonable quality products. I mean, you have to be really careful about who you hire on Upwork, and that's something we can talk about if we have time. But it's possible for you to build a lot of stuff without spending a lot of money using offshore resources and bring them onshore. And now if you think of what's happening and will happen in the next 5 years is now we have AI, which is helping us get super efficient. And now we have all the education that you ever would want about anything available to you at your fingertips. And I don't mean education as in I watch a YouTube video or join a course or do something like that. I mean, that's existed for a decade. And right now you can just chat with an AI. If
Right.
I want something like, I need to do XYZ, now how do I do that? And it'll give you something now help me do that. And then you have the AI agents that everyone's talking about. It's like, okay, then not only will it give you the instructions, now somebody's going to build something which will also execute those instructions for you. And
Right.
so with no code plus AI plus the whole world is your oyster kind of thing, now you are at a place where everything is all yours.
I love that vision. I may not be that greedy. I might share some with other people, but I think that's fantastic. And I agree. When you start combining the tools and when AI starts connecting the tools, some really fun things are going to happen. We are getting close to that wrap up time, though. So Sid, where can people learn more about Broker Botix and maybe find some time to collaborate with you around entrepreneurship?
Sure. So Broker Botix is at brokerbotix.com. So broker is like stockbroker, Botix is like robotics. So brokerbotix.com. I'm Sid at brokerbotix.com, SIDD. You can find me on LinkedIn, and my personal website is s1dd.com. You can look it up. I talk a lot about renewable energy, going solar, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. And my fractional CTO business is Fraxel. Fraccel. That's an awesome name my wife came up with. It's like I'm a fractional CTO that will accelerate your startup. So Fraxel.
I love it. I do love that. That's fantastic. Tell her she has my approval. That's
She
what
came
she
up with
needs.
Broker Botix too. She's the naming. She comes up with all the names for our companies.
Man, you're a family of entrepreneurs. I think it's great.
Uh,
Awesome. So Sid, this has been fantastic. The conversation has been great. And we're really grateful to have had you on the show and to hear all your insights. For everyone else who's been listening in and made it all the way to the end, hopefully you found some value here. I know I did in terms of one, how to be a great father, two, how to start some really awesome companies, and some insights into where we're headed. So please consider leaving a rating or review wherever you listen. And if you know anyone who might be interested in Broker Botix or some support from a fractional CTO with great entrepreneurship experience, send them this episode and introduce them to Sid for us, and let's spread the value. Lastly, remember to take one actionable insight from today, apply it, and let us know how it goes, because we'd really love to hear about your progress. So Sid, thanks again, and everyone else, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all next time on Breakthrough Innovation.